Virginia Potter joined the Federal Public Service in 1987 after serving, interestingly enough, with the Naval Reserve in units across Canada and West Germany. Through various positions over a 15-year period, Ms. Potter gained extensive experience in project management and controllership. She served as Director of Material Acquisition and Support at the Department of National Defence and also as Project Manager for the Canadian Forces Healthcare Plan, both very large projects. In 2004, Ms. Potter was appointed Associate Director General of the Food Directorate at Health Canada, and that appointment was an assignment that formed part of the Government of Canada's Accelerated Executive Development Program. In 2007, Ms. Potter was appointed to the post of Director General of the Canadian Wildlife Service, an agency, a long-standingly well-regarded agency that all of you will know. And I should tell you that we owe her very special thanks today because she stepped in at the last moment for Environment Canada's Bob McLean, who couldn't make it. Please join me in welcoming Virginia Potter.
Good morning. I'm very pleased to be here as the Director General of the Canadian Wildlife Service. The Canadian Wildlife Service has a long tradition, as was mentioned, in stewardship. It's a national directorate within Environment Canada and has programs related to species at risk, migratory birds, protected areas, implementation of CITES, and funding programs, not the least of which the Habitat Stewardship Funding Program. I've unfortunately reached the age where I get a choice of looking at you with my glasses on or looking at my notes, so I'm going to try to use without my glasses for the moment. I'd like to start by congratulating the organizers of this fourth Stewardship and Conservation Conference for the very many interesting sessions that I can see are upcoming. Sorry. I know that there will be a lot of opportunity over the next few days to learn, and a number of our folks, both from the Wildlife Service and other parts of Environment Canada, are here and will be participating in the session. I'd like to also thank the organizers for commissioning the report. I won't bother with the title, you all know what it is, and providing an opportunity in plenary to provide an opportunity for those of us at the table, as well as those in the room, to provide their views on the report. Environment Canada was pleased to be able to support the preparation of the report, and we view that it's very important periodically that we review the progress on stewardship and discuss key steps to move stewardship forward in Canada. Stewardship is viewed by Environment Canada as a key tool to achieving environmental objectives. Laws and regulations will always hold a place, but stewardship, where people are voluntarily taking action for the environment, is clearly the preferred choice. Land and natural resource stewardship are fundamental if we are to enjoy clean water, health, and secure wild species and conserve habitats. And stewardship also depends on the thousands of private landowners and managers of Crown lands across Canada who make the decisions that really affect these lands. Stewardship programs are a key means to provide the right kind of support at the right time to these people. That's why Environment Canada implements a number of stewardship programs. We maintain about a dozen funding programs that aim to support stewardship, and so it will be no surprise to you that the Canadian Wildlife Service implements a number of these. For example, we implement, as I noted earlier, the Habitat Stewardship Program for Species at Risk, as well as the Aboriginal Funding Program for Species at Risk. We manage the Ecological Gifts Program, as well as the Invasive Alien Species Partnership Program, and of course our partnership with the Wetlands Conservation through Canada's North American Wetlands Conservation Council. And it's for that reason that Bob McLean isn't here today, as he's down in the United States meeting with our United States counterparts. I'd like to now turn briefly to the report and offer my thoughts and views on it. First, in terms of a common definition for stewardship, recommendation 1, I hold, I think as many in the room do, a more traditional meaning of the term. To me, stewardship is tied to land and natural resource management concepts linked to the voluntary actions by land managers and owners. At the same time, while stewardship is now applied more widely, I'm not sure that a broader application of the concept has necessarily impeded progress on land and natural resource stewardship. While a clear definition of stewardship is important, other factors are likely as relevant, if not more relevant, to a stewardship roadmap. So I look forward to hearing views around other recommendations and the ideas that folks have, and have enjoyed already the views that I've heard from other panelists and earlier from Mr. Manning. Among the report's other recommendations, the need to establish measurable targets at a landscape and watershed scale, complemented by a tracking system, seems to me to be very significant. At a national scale, Environment Canada is leading on the Canadian Environmental Sustainability Indicators, or CESI, and we're working with provinces and territories on two key products. The first one, the Ecosystem Status and Trends Report, or ESTER, and Canada's fourth National Report on Biodiversity. The key element of this recommendation is the reference to landscapes. We need to ensure that our site-specific actions add up to make a difference, and key ways to work in this direction is to establish key landscape and watershed scale targets and indicators, and then measure progress towards them. An effective response, then, to the second recommendation would also enable meaningful progress on recommendation number 4, concerning integration across governments and agencies. Working at landscape or watershed scales would potentially enable complementary stewardship and protected areas actions and programs, for example. Governments, federally, provincially, and territorially, can protect large areas within landscapes, while stewardship programs and actions are an effective means to build connections between such protected areas. In a changing climate, connectivity on the landscape will be critical for conservation of biodiversity and maintenance of ecological integrity over the long term. Such complementarity extends beyond stewardship and protected areas program. Stewardship is also fostered and enabled by resource sector departments and ministries such as agriculture and forestry, among others, as we've already heard. Landscape-level targets are therefore important as those of us in environment and conservation agencies, as they are to my colleagues, for example, in Agri-Foods, Agriculture Canada. Indeed, actions fostered through the resource sectors will be as important as those supported by conservation organizations, and I think that is an important point for those working on a roadmap to really take under consideration and build those types of connections. I realize that there is desire to seek additional funding to support stewardship, including the establishment of a large national stewardship fund as proposed in the final two recommendations. At the same time, I believe an effective response to recommendation number 3 concerning the economic importance of stewardship and the value of ecological goods and services is likely key to building that business case to provide up to decision makers the evidence base that would enable them to make determinations around such type of a large investment. Perhaps more importantly, it would also strengthen the integration of stewardship into policies and practices of the natural resource sectors and potentially strengthen the case to integrate stewardship and the costs associated with it into the marketplace. And I was quite struck by Mr. Manning's comments earlier that spoke about the complement to the national economic accounts. I think that is something that needs to be thought through, how that could be actually operationalized. Real gains on stewardship front are to be found if the concept takes hold in the marketplace and costs are really reflected in decisions that are made both by industry and by governments. A further thought on the need to establish a fund or obtain additional funding. I believe it may be more important over the short term to build synergy across federal, provincial, and territorial programs. I found the compendium of the various programs that was produced to be very insightful as to how much actually is being spent by so many different organizations. Given the considerable investment by these various government entities, we need to show how these programs are working together in a complementary way to address the highest priorities. You need to be able to demonstrate how you're making a difference with the investment that you currently have before you can make the case to obtain additional funds. So on this note, I'd like to conclude my remarks. I'm looking forward to the discussion, and again, thank you for the opportunity to be here.